is what I need. Let me be the one you come running to.
If you've ever wondered why children of the 70s are just a little bit different, it might be because this was the kind of music they grew up on. A great love song? How great? Well, according to Rolling Stone magazine, one of the 500 greatest love songs of all time. Al Green, on this day in 1972, took Let's Stay Together to number one on the U.S. singles chart. And imagine this, for Al Green, it was his only number one on the U.S. charts. It was ranked the 60th greatest song of all time by Rolling Stone magazine. And wouldn't you know, Tina Turner also made a hit out of it in 1984. On this day in 1972, Al Green's Let's Stay Together, number one on the music charts. It is 6 minutes after 9 on this Wednesday, the 12th of February. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for stopping by. You know, the minute that we begin every day, phone lines are open so that we can interact with you, because conversations are much better when they're two-way. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Couple of things from our roads just as we get underway today. Number one is, you can be darn sure, and I mean you can bet your bottom ding-dang dollar, that there ain't going to be no school buses running tomorrow. And you know what? That's just fine. Unless some way, somehow, this winter wallop misses us. But we are being warned about it from here straight through the greater Toronto area, one of the worst winter storms of the season. You can kind of just feel it hanging over us, right? Like a low cloud ready to dump all of this precipitation on us later this afternoon, through the night, and then into tomorrow morning. The perfect kind of weather that we need to send us off on an Eastern Ontario road trip with the Kitchener Rangers that leaves tomorrow. We'll be in Kingston on Friday night. We'll be in Ottawa on Sunday afternoon. And then we're going to pick up the Peterborough Petes on our way home on Monday afternoon, Family Day. Good reminder for you, it's a long weekend. We've got the Family Day holiday. At least most of us are able to have that day off come Monday. So get ready for the long weekend ahead. But this is some kind of nasty winter weather, and the sort of weather that should absolutely cancel school bus transportation. I just can't help but thinking, like, I don't know about you, but I feel as though this winter has really beaten us down a little bit. I think one of the reasons for that is we haven't had the opportunity for a thaw in between snowfalls. So it just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. And if you're anything like anybody else, the shoveling gets that much more difficult because there's no place to put the snow. I actually saw, while out walking Rosie the pandemic pup yesterday, contracted crews, I guarantee they were hired by the city to go out and clean walkways that were not cleaned by the owners of the properties. I could tell as soon as we started walking, Rosie and I, in this one area, a lot of work had been done to chop up the chunks of snow and ice. And as I continued through the neighborhood, I saw the crews out. I wonder what the bill is for that. But good job, City of Kitchener. Get out there and make sure that people know the rule. You don't do it yourself. The city will do it, and they will leave you a nice, big, fat bill because you didn't get it done. So way to go. That's the way it ought to happen. The other thing on the roads, in addition to the school buses that I fully anticipate being canceled tomorrow, our morning news team was keeping you up to date with all of that through the morning. So you can prepare yourself, right? You got 24 hours to brace yourself and make alternate plans for tomorrow. The other thing, and I don't know why this keeps sticking in my mind, but we've talked a lot about roundabouts and their proper usage, and a few of you have been quick to scoff at the idea of using your left turn signal, which you should do. When you're entering a roundabout, if you're getting off at the third spoke, that's essentially a left-hand turn. You just think of it like an intersection. And you say, well, no, you're always going left in a roundabout. You don't need your left signal on. Think about this, because I drive these roundabouts every single day. As you're going around, if oncoming traffic is stopping for you because you're going around, your left signal is actually really helpful. So they know that you ain't getting off right past their spot because you signal your exit. You see? So if they see that left signal, they know you're going to keep going around that roundabout. Use your signals properly in the roundabout, okay? Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. Number 1, Waterloo Region. Brace yourself for some big numbers. Waterloo Region shipped more than $19 billion worth of exports from local businesses in 2023, most of it from manufacturing. Regional Chair Karen Redmond says looming U.S. tariffs mean supply chains could be disrupted, jobs could be lost, and local businesses will struggle to compete in their largest export market.
The time to act is now. The potential tariffs present not only a challenge, but also an opportunity to strengthen local supply chains, deepen intra-Canadian trade partnerships, and advocate for our regional interests at the provincial and federal levels. Waterloo Region has always been at the forefront of innovation and adaptability. From the advanced manufacturing to tech-driven industries, we have consistently found ways to evolve and to thrive. With the right strategy, collaboration, and investment in our businesses, we can navigate this uncertainty and continue to build a resilient, prosperous region.
Redmond says that most of that $19 billion plus in local exports comes from manufacturing, which represents about 20% of our gross domestic product locally and 17% of our workforce. We'll talk to a couple of steel producers on the show this morning at 11, find out the impact of these tariffs on them. Number 2, Ontario Conservative leader Doug Ford was not the only one in Washington yesterday.
As you can see, I brought a couple of my colleagues, 2 great mayors from London and Kitchener, just great allies, and it's an all government approach, no matter if it's federal or provincial or municipal.
Ford's mission in Washington continues today as he pleads his case against the tariff threat. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning on the provincial election campaign trail today. With Ford in Washington, Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie is expected to make another healthcare-related announcement in Toronto. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner will also be in Toronto to unveil his party's full election platform, while NDP leader Marit Stiles has no public events scheduled today. Number 4, Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic made it to Washington yesterday by boarding a flight just hours after a lengthy meeting of Kitchener Council ended Monday night. It actually, technically, if you want to be blunt about it, ended early Monday morning, past midnight. And despite hearing passionate pleas from about a dozen delegations, the city says it cannot accelerate a report looking at a potential bylaw to protect tenants against renovictions. The report is due back to Kitchener Council in June. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, something wicked this way comes, and it's the weather.
15 to 25 centimeters of snow by early Thursday and may mix with some ice pellets or freezing rain, but it's all going to come to an end around 8 o'clock Thursday morning, and then falling temperatures again.
570s meteorologist Jill Taylor says the storm is expected to start late this afternoon. Snowfall rates peaking at 2 to 4 centimeters per hour. And you just know, they're going to gaslight us at the end of this winter, right? We're going to be told that this was just your quote-unquote average winter, near normal temperatures, near average snowfall. It just feels like this because we really haven't had a winter in a while, right? That is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I saw a meme this morning that said, I am not going to spend another minute of this life not doing what I love to do. So I'm going back to bed. Not bad, not bad. Listen, in this life, perhaps you would like to ensure that you have tried at least one of, or maybe you want to go for all of these definitively Canadian foods, a list that has come out that explains what it is that makes us Canadian. How many from the list have you tried to date? Poutine in at number one. I mean, let's be honest. Who among us has not enjoyed a poutine? Canadian bacon on the list of a must-have Canadian delicacy. I will not tell you a lie. I don't prefer the Canadian bacon. In fact, if I have the option between the Canadian bacon and the strip bacon, I'm taking the strip bacon every day and twice on Sundays. How about the classic Caesar? I've only ever had one in my life. Not really a big fan of tomato juice, but I can understand the appeal. And so I can say that I've had the first three on this list of purely Canadian foods that one must enjoy. Of course, there is beaver tails. Where can you go nowadays that you cannot get a beaver tail? These things have exploded. I believe the roots were in Ottawa, were they not? But my, oh my, what pure deliciousness and a sugar high all in one. I'm 4 for 4. It will come as no surprise that butter tarts make the list of purely Canadian foods that you must enjoy at least once in your life. Just make sure when you get your butter tart that it has nothing in it other than the delicious, gooey center. I mean, I might tolerate a nut or two in there, but I got enough nuts around here, let me tell you. A nut or two around this radio station, but I don't know why you want anything, particularly those failed grapes, in the way of the goo delivery. That's all the pastry of a butter tart is there for, to hold the goo in place. The runnier, the better. Now I want a butter tart really bad. Nanaimo bars make the list. Again, had them. I don't really love them. The coconut in the base doesn't do it for me. I'm not a big fan. But how about some split pea soup? Another purely Canadian dish dating back to our earliest settlers. And it has stood the test of time. Tourtière, I have no idea what it means, but it's a savory meat pie. So that's the one I have not had. And then, of course, we've got maple syrup. If you have not had maple syrup in these here parts, then I don't think you're from these here parts, right? Because we have that big old maple syrup festival in Elmira every single year. Montreal smoked meat, gotta have it. Do it at Schwartz's Deli in Montreal, please and thank you. And then finally, also, I've had, which is lobster. How many on the list have you accomplished as we go through all of that? Have you had a tourtière? Is it as good as it looks in the picture that I have in front of me? Here's the thing about lobster. It's a whole lot of work to get to the eating part, right? Just serve it to me dead on a plate. Let me cut it with a knife and fork. That's how I can handle it. This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Leave it to the Codfather, our good buddy Ron Coddle's Catch in Kitchener. Lets me know that, hey, when it comes to lobster, and if anybody knows lobster, it's the Codfather. Lobster rolls, lobster tails, lobster mac and cheese, lobster bisque. He sounds like Bubba Gump shrimp. Gonna make this kind of shrimp, gonna make that kind of shrimp. We were out at the market on Saturday and made sure we made our stop at Coddle's Catch. We know where to get the good stuff. I'm a salmon guy first and foremost. Got some delicious salmon that we enjoyed on Monday night. But yes, thank you, Codfather, for the reminder that once it's on your plate, it is dead. Just don't make me work too hard to get into the good stuff. That's all. And you know where to go when you need your best seafood around. I'm not telling tales out of school when it comes to the family-run Coddle's Catch in Kitchener. Just thinking ahead on that storm that's expected to arrive late this afternoon in and around the dinner hour. I'm hoping it can hold off just a little bit later because we're headed down to Rogers TV to record one of the candidates' forums. We're going to be having the provincial election candidates for Cambridge join us at Rogers TV later today so that we can record their answers to a number of questions that have been put forward that will impact the riding of Cambridge and beyond. And of course, as we discussed on the show yesterday, There will not be attendance from the progressive conservative candidate in Cambridge. And this is something that has become the stuff of trend during election campaigns. For whatever reason, conservatives have opted out of these public forums / debates. I don't think they should be called debates because we don't really do them in a formal debate-like manner anymore. But regardless, the theory being, I think it's twofold. One is they'll just do the groundwork and go out and knock on doors. And number two is they won't say anything that might insert their foot in their mouth or some such mistake. And I worry a little bit about this, that, I mean, it's obviously worked the past two elections for the progressive conservatives. Federally, the conservatives are leading in the polls, although Leger was reporting this morning that with Mark Carney as Liberal leader, should that come to pass, the Liberals virtually close the gap on the Conservatives in federal election polling. So it's interesting. But nonetheless, progressive Conservatives have won the last two elections here in Ontario. They are leading the polls federally and will not participate, I would suspect, in upcoming candidates' forums. And still, they get elected. So it just reminds me of that old saying, we are always going to end up with the governments that we deserve. Because if we're okay, or if we continue to vote in favor of the party in power, even if they don't show up to the forums, I guess what we're saying is we're okay with it. I'm going to get you to the 570 News Centre for an update. And then it's the See Me, Hear Me Summit in Cambridge, and it's caused a bit of controversy. We'll tell you why and find out how you feel about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. At the end of April, the 25th and 26th to be exact, at the Islamic Center of Cambridge, the See Me, Hear Me Summit and Seminar will take place. Jan Liggett is the mayor of Cambridge. It is from her office that the invitation to attend the summit originates, and Mayor Liggett makes time for our show this morning. Good morning, Mayor Liggett.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good. Other than the tariff and trade mess that's going on, which I'm so involved with right now.
You don't say it's a mess, eh? I mean, it's incredible. I was thinking about this as I listened to the morning news, and I know you talked about it at both Regional Council, a committee meeting, and your Cambridge Council. The stroke of a pen in Washington and the ripple effect of that.
Yeah, and I was listening to CBC this morning at 3 o'clock when I get up sometimes when I think about these things. And they were talking about a report that came out in 2020 on what happened in the steel industry. And I was shocked at how 1,000 jobs that were produced by steel manufacturers in the United States when the tariffs went on steel way back, that there were 75,000 jobs lost in the United States in order to provide for those 1,000 jobs. It's amazing, the ripple effect.
It really is. Obviously, a story that's on everybody's minds, but wanted to talk to you this morning specifically about the See Me, Hear Me Summit, that the invitations came from your office about a month or so ago now. What is the See Me, Hear Me Summit all about, Mayor Liggett? Okay,
so first off, let me say I really appreciate this opportunity, Mike, to amplify this event. You're the first person who has wanted to talk about the summit itself, so I'm sure the families appreciate that from you. So I'm just providing the forum for families to come and speak about their trials and tribulation with legislation, tell their stories, and for people who have been working behind the scenes on this to try to affect change, for them to come out and say what's going on, because people just don't know. So the title, See Me, Hear Me, is exactly that. There have been families who have been for years out in Voices in the Wilderness saying, please help us. This is a platform for those affected families and friends. So, like some of the speakers and presenters that are going to be there are very informed people.
What are you hoping comes from this two-day summit?
Well, I'm hoping, so I'm just providing the forum. But it's up to the media, you guys, to amplify the voices at this summit. So amplify the voices of the family. And failure is not an option here. This has been going on for far too long. I don't know if you are aware. I'm just turning my head here if my voice changes a bit, but the Select Committee on Mental Health and Addictions, which was struck in, let me think now, I think 2008 when it first came into being, and then they reported out a year and a half later, and it provided, and it was a multi-party, it was bipartisan, it was struck by the Liberal government, and then 5 years later, so they came up with 23 recommendations, and then 5 years later, when they did a report on where are we now, they had not progressed any further. So that's extremely troubling, and I have to say that Ontario laws are the least protective in Canada currently to help families overcome the issues and to keep their loved ones out of jail.
Least protective? How so?
I mean, in the country, it's the least protective of all the province to help families overcome barriers and keep their loved ones out of jail. So it's something that has to be worked on. I'm grateful that the government currently is sitting up and taking notice. I wish this election wasn't happening because it puts a pause on to a lot of the good work that is coming up. Minister Tabolo is just an amazing person. He's the Minister for Mental Health and Addictions. He, years ago, understood what the real problems were, and he's the right man for the job, but his voice also has to be amplified, and he has to be given the opportunity by the current government to go forth with all of his ideas on how to make changes happen.
One of those ideas from this current provincial government, Mayor Liggett, is to have people arrested for trespassing if they continue to return to a place or they remain in that place too long. So doesn't that just go against what you're hoping for here because it's going to end up in incarceration?
So there's mixed thoughts on that. I think that people who are repetitively breaking the law, you have to enforce the laws. And when people learn that laws aren't being enforced, they just become more brazen. And I think they need to be given an opportunity to make a choice in their lives. I'm just going to bring up something that is just recently in the news. It's a little bit off topic, but it gives a good example, maybe an extreme example of when laws aren't enforced, when people are allowed to get away with things. So the one where the man had sexually assaulted the woman in the wheelchair, that if you look at his record, he repeatedly physically assaulted people on the street, in businesses, police officers. He has multiple victims all over the place. And now he does something so extreme that people are saying, why wasn't he taken care of years ago? That's the whole point of this. So when you have repeat trespassers, these aren't just people some of these people are just troublemakers. They're in there to cause problems, and it's that enforcement of the laws that are already on the books. Our society now has gotten to the point where people don't believe that laws are going to be enforced, and I find that's troubling.
You mentioned the families whose stories we will hear and whose voices we can amplify at the See Me, Hear Me Summit at the end of April. And one of the other voices attached to this summit is Michael Schellenberger, who is the author of the book San Francisco. Why does Michael Schellenberger get promoted as the keynote speaker and kind of top billing for this summit?
Well, he's a big name. I think that we're very lucky to have somebody of his stature. He did a lot of research. Have you read the book first off, Mike? So I know whether you.
I have.
Okay. So he's a noted author and a journalist. He's broken major stories, including the Twitter files, and he won the 2023 Dow Award for Journalism, which is a big accomplishment. And when I first started reading his book, I thought, oh my God, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And I wanted somebody to come who would be able to speak about the families that he writes about in his books, because I think, as I've been saying, their voices get lost. Repeatedly, their voices get lost. And my summit is about this. So I was looking for people who could speak about their research and their interviews with these families, and he's one.
I know he'll be attending virtually, but I'm sure his appearance isn't free. How are you paying for this?
Well, we have had a lot of people. We've been able to cut funds because some people are doing their work for free on this. So the facility is free. We have one of our panelists is coming in from PEI, and he's free. Our moderator, who is a very well-known person, and I'm not going to release that information just yet, but who is also supplying their services for free. We are looking for sponsors. We are looking for donations, and part of it will be paid for by ticket sales.
How can people get involved and get tickets if they're interested in taking part?
They can email mayor@cambridge.ca, and the actual invitations haven't gone out yet. So what all that notification was a placeholder. Which
Save the date.
Sure, Mike, right?
Yep.
I mean, we all get placeholders put in our calendars to hold the date, so we know not to fill our calendars that day. So that went out. And it didn't have a lot of information on it, just superficial information. We're still building the agenda, but I've got to tell you, I'm amazed at the people who have jumped on board. We have people from Canadian Mental Health Association coming on to speak. We've got the chief of psychiatry from Cambridge Memorial Hospital. We've got somebody from the local food bank to talk about their grandparents program. We've got somebody from our grief counseling center here in Cambridge. We've got local people. We've got people from across the country, and we've got an international speaker. So I think we've got the best that we can get, and I'm so excited about this, that hopefully this will make a difference.
Mayor Liggett, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you for being here.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for inviting me.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Jan Liggett is the mayor of Cambridge. It's the ICYMI Hear Me Summit featuring keynote speaker Michael Schellenberger, he who wrote the book San Francisco. It's created a bit of a stir. Michael Schellenberger is a somewhat controversial figure from the United States. Your thoughts on the ICYMI Hear Me Summit? Are we being seen? Are we being heard? Let me hear from you on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
When you have repeat trespassers, some of these people are just troublemakers. They're in there to cause problems, and it's that enforcement of the laws that are already on the books. Our society now has gotten to the point where people don't believe that laws are going to be enforced, and I find that's troubling. Mayor
Jan Liggett of Cambridge joins us to talk about the ICYMI Hear Me Summit. Save the dates. April 25th and 26th at the Islamic Center of Cambridge. The invitation coming directly from the office of the mayor in Cambridge, and the keynote speaker being promoted with top billing is Michael Schellenberger, who wrote the book San Francisco. Pardon me, I almost said San Francisco. San Francisco, subtitle Why Progressives Ruin Cities. And the arguments in the book are not all that academic, if academic at all. Critics have said that Schellenberger's approaches are not evidence-based, but he comes at the problem of homelessness, addiction, and mental health concerns from kind of a moral high ground, and essentially looks at permissiveness. If you allow people to pitch a tent in a city park and then do drugs in public, this is what causes the problems. We must remove that permissiveness, something that Mayor Liggett alluded to. So Schellenberger creates a bit of a stir with his name on top billing for this event at the end of April in Cambridge. See me, hear me. Are we being seen? Are we being heard? Would love to hear from you on the show. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I just want to basically touch to a point that the mayor of Cambridge mentioned with regarding the repeat offenders. And I think that is just this kind of crimes are just growing rapidly, not only in Ontario, but across Canada. The problem with that is that our enforcement system and our justice system, they're not compatible. And I'm telling you why. We have the best police officer. We have the best investigators. I mean, they solve the crimes, even like God knows how many years after that, everything. And they get the guy or the criminal and then put him in a handcuff and they take him to the court. But when they get to that point, that is where everything falls apart. That's where everything just falls apart. And what happens is at that time, the judge give him like a very soft penalty, or they give him a parole, and they just leave after a couple of days. Look at the guys who robbed the Air Canada, that jewelry heist. I mean, I saw videos that they were like walking around Toronto after they got arrested, and they got parole, and they're all over on the street. So we need punishment. We don't need more enforcement. We enforce, we catch them, but when it comes to punishment, that's where we fail, and that's why they keep repeating. And now you see all these 15 years old robbing jewelry stores in malls and everything, and they know at the age 15 they're not going to be punished. So as long as we're not changing our justice system and punishment system, things going to get worse and worse and worse.
Kevin, thanks for the call. Appreciate the thoughts on this. I'm thinking back on the story that Mayor Liggett alluded to this morning as well in our conversation, which I also read in my morning newspaper about a man who, it's an awful story, has been convicted of sexually assaulting a woman in a wheelchair. He starts by helping the woman by pushing her wheelchair across the street. Next thing you know, he pushes it in behind the shopping mall, in behind a dumpster, and the assault occurs. But that story documents the multiple times prior he had acted aggressively or violently in public and had the opportunity, even though he had been arrested multiple times, to continue doing that until finally it ends up with this sexual assault and a 22-month prison sentence. And the story documents that this individual suffers from mental health challenges. So I find myself in a really interesting spot here. I think we collectively are kind of between that proverbial rock and hard place. We do not have the adequate mental health and addictions services to help people who are in need of our help. And we also, to Kevin's point about people being arrested, charged, and then released back into the public, we have got such a backlog in our court system right now. And don't call it a justice system to me, please. It's a court system. And we have such a backlog in that system. Even if we were to eliminate that backlog, are you telling me we have room in prisons for all of these offenders? So on the one hand, and we talk about this being a public health issue, we do not have adequate supports for people who are suffering from mental illness and addiction. On the other hand, we don't have near enough space in our institutions to imprison people. What is it that we want as an outcome? I think, based on those two situations, we're getting the outcome that we want because it just pushes people into camps on street corners. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The cancellation of an electric vehicle project in Quinte region, up by Belleville in eastern Ontario. The subsidies paid to those developments in southwestern Ontario, Windsor, St. Thomas, Alliston. But is Canada's electric vehicle industry now facing existential threats? Well, at least one expert thinks so, but also has potential solutions for the industry. And we'll talk about those coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is true, I have an opinion on everything we talk about on this show. And I know when it comes to electric vehicles, you also have your share of opinions, particularly of late when we look at the billions of dollars worth of subsidies going to Stellantis in Windsor, Volkswagen in St. Thomas, Honda in Alliston, etc. Canada and Ontario as well seem to be betting pretty big on the future of automotive technology. Charles Conta is a professor of political science and the director at the Niagara Community Observatory at Brock University. Joins us for a conversation. Charles, good morning.
Good morning, and how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, sir. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, and I should apologize in advance if you hear a dog barking in the background. That is my German Shepherd, very territorial, so please forgive me in advance.
Okay, thanks for letting us know, and that's okay. Dogs are always welcome on this show, Charles, always.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
One of the things hanging over every conversation we have of late seems to be tariffs and the threat of those tariffs from the United States. How do you see that tariff threat impacting Canada's EV industry?
You know, like every Canadian, yes, it is a reality. It is existential. It's uncharted waters. Put things in historical perspective. We have never seen anything like this in the 200-year history of bilateral relations with the United States. So it's a whole new terrain, a whole new water that we're trying to sort of navigate through. And, you know, for perspective, think 25% tariff, not just on one flow across the border, because the auto sector, including EV industry, has a complex value chain across the whole sector, which means sort of crisscrossing other paths between the two countries. And so 25%, think in terms of multiples. The reality that is in front of Canada is a potential decimation to Canada's auto sector. But what we are coming to the conversation is to step back and say, listen, let us take a closer look at the reality of what is going on. Is the threat existential? Yes. It is a game changer? Yes. Will it shake or perturb the landscape of auto manufacturing here in Ontario and Canada? Yes. Let me put that in perspective. So we have $46 billion invested by the feds alone. And then we have the provinces like Ontario and Quebec, laying, their cash on the table as well. So Canada's skin is in the game. There is a lot at stake. EV is the emerging technology of the 21st century. It's a game changer, like AI. And so the feds and the provinces have rightly invested to kind of carve a niche for Canada in this new landscape. And you may ask me, what's the wisdom of such an investment? So here's a perspective. The auto sector in Canada, Mike, employs some 460,000 people, directly and indirectly. Like in 2022, direct jobs within the auto sector, over 100,000. More precisely, 125,000 jobs. 37,000 in assembly, 17,000 in trucks, and some 71,000 in other parts. So it's a real deal. Indirect jobs, I can give you the numbers as well. But the long and short is that by 2022 Stats Canada numbers, the auto industry contributed $14 billion to the Canadian GDP. So any threat to the sector is a big deal for Canada, and that's the reality that we're facing. But what I try to tell folks, and in the article that I just published in the conversation, is we've got to have a long perspective on this, which means that there are some fundamentals in Canada that we can sort of leverage that positions us globally as a key player. Trump understands that. The U.S. administration currently understands that. And it's trying to shake the waters to essentially remove the red carpet from underneath Canada and shift advantage back to the States. And how we play that game will be critical for the next 4 years in this country.
So what makes you think, Charles, that staying the course on EV investments here in Canada is the way to go?
I'm glad you asked. So just early last year, 2024, you have a Bloomberg NEF sort of annual battery supply chain report. I won't go into the technicalities of the report except to say they rank 30 top countries to see in terms of global positioning over the next 10 to 20 years, in terms of key assets, which countries are major players. Canada came on top among 30 countries. I'm going to say that again. Canada came out on top. So if you look at sort of head count of assembly, automotive assembly, manufacturing, look, the U.S. is the home. I mean, most of the headquarters are domiciled there. They have the major players. But in terms of the EV sector, Canada has one of the greatest reserve of critical minerals. Now, think about critical minerals for the EV sector as water to agriculture. It is vital. It is necessary. It is foundational. And Canada has a massive supply of it. Part of Trump's strategy really is to kind of shake Canada and secure access to the country's critical minerals, because he understands that is a major competitive advantage for Canada. If we play our game wisely, we stand to essentially be a global powerhouse for that upstream of the value chain of the EV sector. And I'm glad that the industry minister or the innovation minister, federal minister, understands that. So the next piece I'll call your attention to is the fact that from the downstream side, Canada has had some pretty exciting investment recently from the feds and from the provinces in battery manufacturing, for instance. We have major players that plant their flags in this country, right? Umicore, Northvolt, and others. Stellantis is playing. GM has an interest in Canada. Ford, they kind of suspended their game plan. But so you have the major movers who recognize Canada as a place to invest and plant their flag for battery manufacturing. So it's not about simply critical minerals, but even the manufacturing investment and infrastructure are already being built here in Canada. The Trump administration understands that. There's a downstream side to where Canada can up its game. Now the feds have this sort of fiscal incentive to incentivize, demand for EVs. What I'll suggest is, in light of what is going on, because the feds were thinking of essentially ending that. Part of the navigation of the next 4 years is for Ottawa to rethink ending that particular incentive, because I think we need to sort of incentivize local demand within Canada. But my biggest argument, my sense of urgency is that we understand the need for Canada to link our upstream assets and our downstream assets, i.e., the fact that we have the critical minerals and we are top among 30 leading countries is not enough. How we access those minerals, how we bring them to market, how we integrate them into the downstream of automotive commercialization and innovation is very critical. Unfortunately, we sit on those minerals, but our mining infrastructure, our rules, our regulations, access to, if you will, those minerals, we still have some work to do. So yes, Trump has thrown a wrench into things. Massive perturbation, 25% tariff, thinking multiples. But we can essentially kind of just hunker down and try to strengthen that innovation ecosystem by saying, what do we need to do to reposition, to build the scaffolding around the fact that we have one of the greatest deposits of what is essential and a prerequisite to any country having a game at all in the EV of the future. And I think that's where we should be focusing. Yes, we got to take on the tariff. Yes, Canada has to fight back as a sovereign nation, preserve its dignity. But, I think about this in terms of a long term. We have some homework to do, building the scaffolding for a robust, globally competitive innovation ecosystem in the EV sector. Nature has given us endowment and a blessing. How we leverage that and position that, the 4 years will be long, but I am thinking, Mike, beyond the next 4 years. We have a lot of work to do that will take longer than 4 years. And Canada should really, really just double down on ensuring that our upstream and our downstream supply chains are really integrated. That's where the future lies. Trump understands it. He's troubled by it. He's trying to shake Canada up to have access to our minerals. And we have to play that game wisely and be really savvy about it.
It is a fascinating conversation, and there's no doubt those critical minerals do exist. We have been blessed with that endowment, to be sure. Charles, appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you for being here. Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
Charles Conta is a professor of political science at Brock University. He argues that the EV industry is worth the long game. And I did hear or read something along those lines when it comes to those critical minerals that exist, that allow us, that put us in the position to be a global leader in all of this. and it was an argument for investing in innovation in this country. We've got this ring of fire and we can't even build a road to it. That's how many stumbling blocks we encounter here as a nation. Is the EV industry something you can get behind, us rallying around in Canada? Would love to hear your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We've got to have a long perspective on this, which means that there are some fundamentals in Canada that we can still leverage that positions us globally as a key player. Trump understands that. The U.S. administration currently understands that. And it's going to shake the waters to essentially remove the red carpet from underneath Canada and shift advantage back to the state. And how we play that game will be critical for the next 4 years in this country.
Charles Conta is a professor of political science at Brock University. He's also the director of the Niagara Community Observatory. He joins us to talk about the EV long game, if you will. We must take a longer-term perspective on the electric vehicle industry, which is currently in a state of flux. The tariffs are an almost existential threat on automotive generally, EV specifically. We've seen revenues fall, sales kind of plateauing at around that 10 or 11%. And many have been dismissive of the idea of electric vehicle technology because of continued range anxiety, for one example. The cost, I mean, that's certainly been prohibitive to us in our household because it's just not a market that we're interested in entering at the price point currently. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Emailing Paul and then an email from Mike. Get to the heart of this pretty quickly. And emailing Paul is so named because he emails, not the Paul that likes to phone. And emailed Paul's email to Mike at 570news.com reads, finally, our guest, Charles Conta, someone pointing out why Trump is attacking Canada. It has been said that the next war will not be about oil, but about one of Canada's biggest resources, water. And Canada has one of the world's biggest cache of rare earths. By the way, that's also why Greenland is under attack. And Mike writes to Mike at 570news.com, never in all of world history have so many countries been watching closely to one new leader, President Trump. This is a new age. And of that, there is no question. On the other side of this conversation, though, you get this from David, who emails to Mike at 570news.com. Canada is serious about EVs when every gas station in the country is mandated to have at least one working charging station available 24/7. And I can't help but think there's a fair argument there, right? We're talking about phasing out gasoline-powered vehicles in the next 10 years. Where is the infrastructure required to charge all of those electric vehicles, should that be where we end up? I still think there's a lot of room for that timeline to slip and shift in the years ahead. But I remember thinking this probably about a year ago when I was driving along King Street East, not far from Hefner's really, and there's a development underway, something being built. Well, the something that is being built is a gas station. And I wondered to myself, why are we building these? And they're always full. You always see people stopped at them when you need to get gas. Oftentimes you're waiting in line for the next available pump. And we keep building the gas stations. Why are we not building electric vehicle charging stations at this point? And of course, even if we were, do we have the power necessary to operate all of them? Which is another question that's been asked in all of this. Let's go to the phones. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. It's a sunny day in Point Clark, and I'm driving my Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And the reason I chose this one was because of exactly the same concerns that you were expressing. Range anxiety and also the lack of charging infrastructure. This thing operates in 4 modes. I can go all electric. In the summer, it's 80, 90 kilometers. In the winter, it's 60 to 70. I can drive back and forth to Kincardine, all electric, not use any gas. It also operates in a hybrid mode. It also operates in a gas mode. It operates in a gas and it charges the battery up. And Mike, this thing, even when I'm using gas, gets ridiculous fuel economy, like 3.4 to 3.8 liters per 100 kilometers. And I used to fill up my old Jeep 3-4 times a month, and that was $80, $90 a pop. Now I'm filling up every 4 to 6 weeks, Mike. And the reason I chose this plug-in hybrid electric, it's multi-personality, but for 80% of my driving, it's all electric. And I'm saving a ton of money on gas. And the reason I chose it was I didn't want to go all electric because of the range, and the lack of infrastructure. But even up at the lake here, I've had a few people. I put a charging station in my garage, and I've had a few people with their electric vehicles come begging for me. We don't have enough charge to get home, and I've allowed them to charge up. So that's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike, appreciate the call. Always good to hear from you and some firsthand experience with, in this case, a hybrid. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our 10:30 update in the 570 News Center. Quickly back to the phones. Paul, I got about 30 seconds.
Okay, I heard my name mentioned, so I think I better call in. 30 years in automotive research and development in propane, natural gas, hydrogen, hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles, all these things. And the one thing that they have in common is they only last as long as there's government incentives. Nobody buys unless somebody else is paying the premium for them. Take away the government incentives, and the market for those vehicles collapses. That has been historical, and it always has been the way it always will be.
All right. Maybe this time it'll be different, Paul. Maybe this time it'll be different. And we do have those critical minerals here in Canada. I thought it was interesting that Mike called earlier about this issue up at the lake. He's in Bruce County, and we are going to head into Grey County. But I know lots of folks listen from up that way or visit up that way, and it's a really powerful story about parents overcoming tragedy and doing something in the name of their now deceased son. We'll tell you the story coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers. Having the opportunity to work in the Ontario Hockey League has brought a lot of good things into my life. Of that, there is no question. I've made some great friends along the way, including the legendary Fast Freddie Wallace in Owen Sound. And it was through Fred Wallace that I met the couple that you are about to meet here on the show this morning. And I love their story because it follows through on the old saying, when life gives you lemons, make some lemonade. And this couple certainly got their share of lemons. Very pleased to be joined on the show this morning by Christy Webster, her husband Todd. Christy, good morning.
Good morning.
And Todd is with us as well. Todd, good morning to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
And thank you both for making time for this conversation. Christy, I'll start with you. G-Man Cares is the foundation that you and Todd have founded. How did this all get started? What was the inspiration for it?
Well, unfortunately, the inspiration was our son, Jeffrey, had an enduring anorexia nervosa from the age of 11 to 17, where he passed away from this in July of 2023. And his dying wish was to have us as parents have care closer to home and providing some form of program for Grey Bruce. So that's how it sort of came to fruition.
Todd, what were those years like with Jeffrey? You know, Christy just mentions from the age of 11 to 17 when he passes. But as a family, you know, what were the struggles in finding the necessary care? And what did you see your son having to endure?
it was really horrible for everybody involved. Jeffrey was the most beautiful, loving child, and he got basically invaded and held hostage by this mental health eating disorder, and it turned the entire family upside down, the family dynamics, and it robbed the other two children actually of a lot of their youth because there was so much disruption, and ultimately Christy had to put her whole career on hold and was in various treatment programs from London to Toronto Sick Kids to Children's Hospital in Ottawa and as far away as Denver, Colorado for a program, and our family was completely it was just terrible.
Christy, you mentioned that Jeffrey's dying wish was that more could be done, a program could be created so that there is more support in Grey Bruce. So clearly he was lucid, he was aware of what was happening to him, and God bless him, he wanted to make sure others were able to get the help.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, recognizing that we can't always have all the help in Grey Bruce, but certainly the program we're looking at is offering early identification and intervention for youth with disordered eating and helping people navigate next pathways and providing interventions, which, I mean, that's a high order. But for him, he had a lot of insight, believe it or not, despite the fact that he was entrenched with this disease. And he felt that if we could provide more care, he found he did better when he was around family and friends, as opposed to being alone in a hospital away from everyone.
Todd, what's it been like building G-Man Cares to the point where we're at today? About a year and a half. It's still really recent, I have to think, even just on the calendar to July of 23 when you lost Jeffrey. What's this process of building G-Man Cares been like for you and Christy and the family?
It's definitely been mixed emotion. I think it's very amazing to see the support in the community and the progress that's being made, and it's also been emotionally very draining and exhausting at times.
So what do you hope that G-Man Cares is able to accomplish?
I could probably speak to that. I mean, certainly providing, like I was saying, a local program for Grey Bruce, sort of first point of contact. And we have a partnership with Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario Research Institute, where they have a model of care that we're trying to implement in our area. And so we are moving forward. We've really developed certainly a website that will be coming online shortly, the logo, charitable status, and like Todd was saying, we really do have quite a lot of community support, so it's wonderful to see.
And the other piece I would add is I think that our community is not alone. There's a dearth of support for children that are suffering all across the province and I think in the country, and it would be nice to be able to see this model of care, available for everybody that's struggling.
What would you share, Todd, with other parents who may be seeing signs in their own children? What this experience was like, watching your son go through this?
I think the biggest thing for me was to learn not to be angry and blaming your child, because they're held hostage and they really don't have the ability to fight this, and providing love and support is going to be your best chance of saving them.
We are in conversation this morning with Todd and Christy Webster, the parents of Jeffrey, who suffered from anorexia nervosa, and his dying wish was that there be a program created to bring more care for this eating disorder to folks in Grey Bruce, and as Christy and Todd have pointed out, beyond as well, because other communities may be lacking in that care. I mentioned at the outset that I've had the privilege and pleasure of meeting Todd and Christy through Fred Wallace in Owen Sound in my work in the Ontario Hockey League. And you know the Ontario Hockey League and the Attack in Owen Sound are getting behind this initiative. We'll continue our conversation with Todd and Christy Webster here on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We're in conversation this morning with Christy and Todd Webster. They are the parents of Jeffrey, who passed in July of 2023. And one of Jeffrey's dying wishes is that more be done to support young people like him who were dealing with an eating disorder. And out of that has come G-Man Cares, founded by Christy and Todd, and standing for Jeffrey's model for the treatment of anorexia nervosa and other eating disorders, which is a local, and here comes the CARES part, community-based program focused on awareness, research, education, and support for both patients and families affected by eating disorders. Christy, I know that you have received tremendous support from the community, including the local hockey community in Grey County, which, of course, includes the OHL's Owen Sound Attack. And there's a charity game coming up, and we're lucky enough with the Kitchener Rangers to be a part of it. What's going to happen on March the 1st?
March the 1st, the Attack are doing a community game for us, and we've got, it's an opportunity to raise awareness and education, certainly telling our story, but also having some information pamphlets there. And we do have a silent auction. We're also going to have an online auction. We have a puck throw, a tire roll, a bunch of stuff that will be happening, and we're really looking forward to having everyone come out for the event.
Todd, what does it mean to get the support that you've been able to gather in the community so far as you get G-Man Cares off the ground?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, they say it takes a community to raise a child, and certainly the Owen Sound community in Grey Bruce region, it's really been incredibly giving and just heartwarming.
Is this the first real big step forward you've taken with G-Man Cares since getting it underway?
We did have another fundraising event early spring last year. A lot of it's been word of mouth and just encouraging people to make donations if they can to the Community Foundation Grey Bruce under G-Man Cares Endowed Fund. So that's where we've been working hard, because right now there is no provincial funding. So really what we are raising funds for is to provide a program. And we will have an educational component that comes to fruition in April, May, June. So that'll be the start of things.
So, Todd, how can folks get involved and help support not only this game on March the 1st, but G-Man Cares more generally, so we can make sure this is as meaningful as possible?
Well, they can search on the website, come to the game, and we did receive notification a week or so ago that this was, received charity status from the CRA, so it'll be an official recognized charity, and we'll be moving that forward as well in the months to come.
What goes into getting that charitable registration? A lot of paperwork, I'm guessing.
Yes, there is a lot of paperwork. I was pleasantly surprised when we got our approval just a couple of weeks ago. But yes, it's quite an application. So it's wonderful to see that it's been supported, and it certainly will open up doors in terms of funding opportunities for us.
And Todd, I'm sure it helps having an organization like the Owen Sound Attack get involved in this, and the profile that can bring when you put a few thousand people into the Harry Lumley Bayshore Community Centre to see the game when G-Man Cares is being represented.
For sure, 100%. Really,
and we
really
do have a special. Tell them about our special jersey.
Well, the G-Man Cares attack jersey. They'll be wearing them on game night, and then those will be auctioned off online as well.
I love to hear it, and I love that another OHL franchise is getting behind something so meaningful in the community. Christy, Todd, really appreciate you making time for our show this morning. I know it's a busy and an emotional time, but thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to being in the arena when we have this game on March the 1st. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Christy and Todd Webster joining us on the show this morning, parents of Jeffrey and founders of G-Man Cares, which stands for Jeffrey's Model for the Treatment of Anorexia Nervosa and Other Eating Disorders, which is a local community-based program focused on awareness, research, education, and support. And when the Kitchener Rangers are in Owen Sound on Saturday, March the 1st, the Attack will wear those special jerseys that you just heard Todd and Christy talk about, which will feature the colors and the design elements from the G-Man Cares logo. Those jerseys to be auctioned off then for charity, and the full proceeds going to the establishment of G-Man Cares, thanks to the support of local sponsors who are the official jersey sponsors for the game. Tire roll, puck throw, raffles, you name it, all in support of G-Man Cares as the OHL community wraps its arms around an important initiative in the city and the region where they reside. In this case, it's Grey Bruce. I know lots of folks like to make the trip up. We see plenty of Kitchener Rangers fans when we go to Owen Sound games. So just keep that one in mind on March the 1st. There's a special component added to it for G-Man Cares on March the 1st. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just thinking ahead on the big storm that's a-coming and the fact that it will likely impact school bus transportation tomorrow, right? I mean, I don't want to presume anything here, but by all indications, we're in for some kind of winter wallop, and I have a difficult time believing that bus transportation will be operational tomorrow. And so as I think on school buses, I think on an announcement last week from Transport Canada, which is going to increase safety, Transport Canada says, on school buses by adding new cameras to them. Unfortunately, they're not exactly the kinds of cameras I wish they would be. Nonetheless, the plan is to have this implemented as of November 2027, so 2 and a bit years from now. But what these cameras do, they get mounted to the outside of the school bus so that drivers can see if anyone is around the bus before they drive off. The technology offers enhanced visibility beyond what the mirrors alone can do. And with this regulation, Canada is going to become the first country in the world to require new school buses to be fitted with this technology. According to Anita Anand, who is the Minister of Transport and Internal Trade federally, the biggest, and I'll quote here, the biggest risk safety for children riding a school bus isn't inside the vehicle, it's actually around the bus. With this new regulation, the Government of Canada is taking meaningful action to improve school bus technologies and to keep our children safe. Again, you're not going to get an argument from me about protecting these most precious resources of ours, our kids, 2.2 million of whom travel to and from school every day on a bus. I love the idea of the cameras so that drivers have the ability to see almost a 360 around the bus before they put it back in motion. But what's missing here, from where I'm sitting anyway, is the camera mounted to the stop arm on the bus or mounted some other way so that we can catch the license plates of the jackwagons who insist on driving past school buses when their stop arm is deployed. Because you know those jackwagons exist, and I wish that they didn't. Please try to remember that the 12 seconds or so that you are saving by blowing past that school bus is not worth the life of a child. Still, kudos to Transport Canada for increasing safety with these cameras mounted on school buses so that drivers can see all around the bus after they let kids off or bring kids on. Before they put that bus back into motion, they will be able to ensure that there are no children in harm's way. And these new cameras will be required on every bus by November of 2027, so a couple of years from now. We're going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then steel and aluminum tariffs and their impact on businesses right here in our community who produce steel. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. It seems like every conversation this morning, and really in recent days, has had the cloud of tariffs hanging over it. But in this next half hour, we're getting a little more specific about those tariffs, 25% on steel and aluminum, by talking to people in our community who are in the industry. One of them is Lexi Lorenz, who's the manager of metal supermarkets in Kitchener, and joins the show. Lexi, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad.
Glad to hear it. Unfortunately, I guess it's not too bad today, but who knows about tomorrow with the threat of these tariffs hanging over our heads. How does that impact what you do at metal supermarkets?
Well, currently with the threat of the tariffs, we won't see anything immediately, which is a positive. So anything that we have in-house, we're not really going to see it. It's just moving forward. It's more of a, if Canada retaliates at this point, that we'll start seeing increases. But some of our suppliers will be looking towards increasing prices. So
how do you prepare for what's to come next if Canada retaliates or as time goes on? Is there anything that you can do to prepare for this?
Well, we're trying to find a wide variety of suppliers just to make sure that we can keep costs as low as possible for our customers. So we're branching out to the way we would normally buy stuff for our customers. Being a distributor, we have the option to go to many places so we can get the best prices for our customers.
It sounds a little bit like what we've been talking about with the Canadian economy in general. We have to diversify, right?
Yes, we have been definitely diversifying a lot, making sure that we are hitting up every source we can so that we can keep the bottom line as low as possible.
Who are your customers generally at metal supermarkets?
Our customers are everybody. Anybody that's doing a little hobby project at home, people that are doing crafts or making jewelry, all the way up to big corporations, and everybody in between.
So it goes to show that, you know, these tariffs, and we've talked about them impacting consumers for sure, but even somebody who's a hobbyist that might need to get their hands on it, these tariffs and any retaliatory tariffs are going to have an impact right in our own household budgets.
Unfortunately, potentially that is what may happen. We are going to strive to keep our prices as low as possible for our customers and make sure that they still have the trust they've come to gain with us, knowing that that's what we do. We try to get them the best prices. We try to get them the quickest turnaround time. We're going to try to keep doing that as much as we can. And we feel we got through it last time. We feel like we'll be able to get through it again.
When you say you got through it last time, I was wondering about that. So is that back in 2016 when we went through this the first time with Donald Trump?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, unfortunately, we've already gone through this once. A little deja vu happening. We managed to get through that one. Our customers understood, the situation. Also, because here at Metal Supermarkets in Kitchener, we cut to size, so our customers have the option to buy just what they need. They don't have to buy full lengths. They don't have to buy bundles. They can buy a lower amount to suit their project needs.
When you look back, Lexi, to the last time you had to go through this and the deja vu experience, what did you learn back in 2016, 2017 that you can apply today?
That's basically going to be the same way that we've already started preparing for moving forward. Is just we're trying to find more suppliers that are going to give us the best prices. We're trying to find better ways to help our customers. We're trying to make sure that we can just keep everything business as normal as much as it can be. It will be, business as normal until it doesn't have to be.
I can only imagine that, the industry that you work in is really the talk of industry lately. Like all the focus right now is on steel and aluminum. Did you ever think that would be the case, that your industry would be the number one thing people are talking about?
I always like to think that I'm going to be talked about at some point in time. No, it is quite interesting that, all of a sudden the focus has switched over to the metal industry. We've been, the metal industry is huge and it's been around forever and we've been doing what we've been doing, but it is crazy that it seems right now the focus is so high on steel and aluminum and us as distributors and all the plants that we are now in the highlight spot.
Do you work with, for example, Hamilton, we know as a steel city. Would you be working with firms in Hamilton as part of your supply chain?
There are some of our suppliers that deal with Hamilton, so we do have stuff that would come in from Hamilton, yeah. We deal with most of our suppliers are across Ontario, so we do try to keep most of our material being purchased from Canada, but since our suppliers are multinational, it can be from anywhere.
And I suspect, Lexi, you've been hearing from a lot of customers who are really curious about how this is going to be impacting their purchases.
Mm-hmm. I have, and it's right now we don't know. And I think that's what scares people the most is we don't know. We have assured everybody that we are going to keep everything as low as possible. We're never going to just jump the gun and do something, make drastic changes for them. We stand by what we do for sure in our pricing. So we will hustle as much as we have to make sure they're getting the pricing that they need. And for customers, we just tell them right now we don't know what's going to happen moving forward. But the best thing that we do keep with is it's business as normal until it doesn't have to be. We're trying to keep everything calm because until we actually see a raise or anything like that, there's no reason to get all kerfuffled, so to say.
It makes perfect sense, and I can only imagine the uncertainty and volatility that surrounds it. But it's really great to get your perspective this morning, Lexi. Thanks very much for joining the show.
Thanks so much, Mike, for having me on.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Lexi Lorenz is the manager at Metal Supermarkets in Kitchener. Bracing for, I guess it's one of those things where you prepare for the worst and hope for the best. It's a little bit uncertain right now, but just like our national economy, there's a lot of focus on diversifying when it comes to those supply chains. So that's the perspective from Metal Supermarkets in Kitchener. There's also a steel and supply location in Guelph that we'll check in with next as we live in these uncertain times for the steel industry. Who knew we'd talk so much about steel on the Mike Farwell Show? This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. As Doug Ford remains in Washington, pleading Ontario's and really, to some degree, Canada's case in what is a looming tariff war with the United States, businesses right here in our community feel the impact, including Hunter Steel and Supply, which has several locations, Stratford, Brantford, Guelph, for example, and Mark Hunter is the president there at Hunter Steel and Supply and joins us for a chat. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
How does it feel living under the threat of these tariffs?
Life is always interesting. obviously, this is not something we want to have. It makes life more challenging for everybody. And the odd thing about this is that it's going to have the same impact on U.S. businesses as well. It's going to make their life more challenging, not just financially challenging, but supply chains are largely integrated between the two countries, and all of that gets thrown for a loop when this stuff happens. And the odd thing about this one is there doesn't seem to be any rationale behind it. And that makes it more challenging to try to figure out what the outcome is, when this will end, and we really don't. I don't know that anyone's aware of what the U.S. government's trying to accomplish with these, except to throw their weight around where they can. So that makes it challenging to deal with.
It certainly appears that way, throwing their weight around where they can. I could not agree with that more. So for the layperson, Mark, who's not involved in the industry as you are at Hunter Steel and Supply, what do these tariffs look like? What impact does that have on how you do business, the way you do business, the cost of doing business, et cetera?
Yeah, so right now, about 90% of the steel I sell comes from U.S. producers. So there won't be a direct impact to my business, but a great many of my customers sell directly their finished goods products into the U.S. And right now there's some question about what a tariff on steel means. Is it that piece of I-beam that's going into the U.S., or is it a manufactured product that has a steel component? It's all a little bit unclear right now what that means. So it's and right now those tariffs are only being applied by the U.S. government, so it would impact anything being shipped from Canada into the U.S. Now, if you're a supplier selling to a customer in the U.S., that customer has negotiated a price with you. This tariff is going to add 25% to your price. And it's that supplier that doesn't know what that means for their end customers or for their own use, what that financial impact is. And just the threat of tariffs makes those U.S. customers not want to place orders until they have a clearer picture of what this means for them. So that's the immediate disruption right now. My own belief is that domestic suppliers, if we put on reciprocating tariffs, so U.S. steel coming into Canada, if that gets tariffed, it will raise the price of all steel products by 25%, or very close to that.
I hesitate to use the word pivot because we used it so often during the pandemic. So what about changes if we go that way? How do you adjust or change your business model to live with this new reality? It's, again, for me, it's trying to I have a number of customers that deal with different segments, a great many in the auto sector, but other segments as well. And so for them, what it means is their current customers are going to be reluctant or maybe reluctant to buy. So now they have to go out and find new customers. And that just takes time and effort, to start selling their products to companies in Europe or Asia. They have to establish those relationships with those customers. They've got to deal with the logistics, arranging shipping, because truck and rail don't work as well going to Europe. And so it's a complete disruption of the way they do business. The way they do business. It's been very easy to deal with the U.S. Obviously, the transportation is cheaper, easier to navigate. You can send a truck from Ontario and be fairly far south in the U.S. in one day. Shipping goods to Europe is probably a few weeks, maybe a month or several months, depending on what time you can get on a boat. So it is a big change, but I think it's one that might be necessary. I think because this protectionism is not unique to Donald Trump. Other parties, the Democratic Party, the last president talked about some protectionist language, although we didn't see anything implemented. But you're always nervous. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? And I think broadening our customer base, this might be a perfect time to start doing that. As painful as it'll be, I think long term it will pay off for us. It's really interesting, Mark, as I think about that. And your point, obviously, on North America and how relatively easy it is to move those goods across the border is very well taken. But I guess we might be in this place where the industry and other industries, as tariffs continue to be applied, change dramatically forever. And I get the sense from listening to you that maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a good thing if, the future in the steel industry has less reliance on the United States.
I think that's a good thing. Like if you think about any business, it's always good to have a diversified customer base. If you have if you only supply to one segment of the market, when that market gets soft, you suffer. And I think putting the investment in diversifying our customer base and our supply base as well, I think has got positive things. But because it's been so easy to deal with the U.S., there's never really been the impetus to do that because it is costly. But living under the threat of constant, it's the uncertainty that's the hardest part, and living under that it's getting old. And I do think it's time that we maybe suck it up, put the effort in, and start dealing with other countries.
It's really great to get your perspective on this, Mark. Thank you very much for joining the show this morning.
You're welcome. Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Mark Hunter is the president of Hunter Steel and Supply Limited, locations around Ontario, Stratford, Woodstock, Brantford, Orangeville, and Guelph. And he joins us to talk about that uncertainty and maybe, just maybe, longer term, this isn't such a bad thing. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I thought it would be worth pointing out to you, just to kind of tie a bow on this tariff talk and the impact on businesses locally. We heard from the Metal Supermarket in Kitchener, Hunter Steel, with locations including Guelph, Stratford, Woodstock, Brantford, Orangeville. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce has issued a report looking at the 10 Canadian cities that are, quote, most exposed to the 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel imports. And we find 5 of those top 10 in Ontario. St. John, New Brunswick, and Calgary, Alberta will be the 2 hardest hit cities, followed by, and brace yourself for this, Windsor, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Brantford, and Guelph. There's your top 5. St. John, Calgary, Windsor, and then hello, region of Waterloo, Brantford, and Guelph. 3 of the top 5 hardest hit cities by the 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel. We find ourselves 4th in all of this. And that takes me back to our Farwell Show 5 this morning and the numbers shared by Regional Chair Karen Redman at a regional committee meeting just the other day. $19 billion worth of exports from local businesses in 2023, most of that from manufacturing. It comes from, or that represents manufacturing, about 20% of our gross domestic product and 17% of our workforce. And these looming tariffs could impact supply chains, could cost jobs, and of course, cause our local businesses to struggle to compete in their largest export market. Yes, it's hitting home. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers. The USports Women's Hockey Championship is coming to the region of Waterloo. We're just over a month away. March the 20th through the 23rd at the Dan Snyder Memorial Arena in Elmira, part of beautiful Woolwich Township. University of Waterloo will play host to that USports Women's Hockey Championships. And don't forget that our women's hockey team from Waterloo is coming off its first ever appearance at the USports National Championships in Saskatoon last year. So how about bringing it back home for another run at the title and somebody helping the Warriors in that regard is Dolly Meggs, who's an associate coach with the University of Waterloo women's hockey team. Dolly, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you. How about you?
Good. Just at the rink.
Of course you are. Where else would you be, right? Well, let's start with a little bit of your history, Dolly, from student athlete with the Warriors to coaching. What's it like being an alum of the program and now being one of its coaches?
Yeah, it's great. It definitely helps with recruiting, actually, because I know everything about the school. But it does bring more pride, especially winning last year. It's just a little more pride when you're an alum of the school.
So you talk about that pride and winning last year. How has that changed the approach, if at all, to the season this year with the Warrior women?
I don't think it's changed the approach. I think it's showed the girls what level we can reach, and that's really our first goal this year is to focus on getting back to winning a McCaw Cup champion again.
Take us back to that McCaw Cup championship last year and what it meant to see that goal go in and know that you were champions.
Yeah, it was pretty intense just being overtime. I think we deserved the win, but just seeing it finally go in was unreal. Pretty hard to describe, for sure.
And the experience that you had in Saskatoon at the USports Championship, even though you didn't come away with the title, what do you take away from that experience that you can maybe bring back with you this season?
I think it's important just to get the experience to go to a nationals. So I think we're using that as a stepping stone to build on this year. Because when you get there as a team that's never been there before, everything's really new and exciting, and you're not really sure on everything. And now that the girls have that experience, I think it's really going to help us be prepared for this year.
You are having a heck of a season, to say the very least. Besides coaching, which is obvious, Dolly, what is it that's got the women playing so well this year?
I think it's just our team environment. The girls know what level we can reach this year, and I think they're prepared, and that's the expectation. That's where they want to go. So I think we're just holding ourselves more accountable this year. So I think it's just giving us more success.
Since you joined the coaching staff, what have you done to grow as a hockey coach?
I do a lot of professional development with the NHL Female Coaches Development Program. I work under Sean, who you know pretty well. He's a great mentor. So I think I'm just learning all the time. Every year I'm getting better just learning under him.
How did you know this was something you wanted to do?
I've kind of always known. So I went to Laurier, and part of Laurier, I was a Quest for Gold athlete. So I got a scholarship to help at Team Ontario camps, coaching, and I went into their development program for coaches, and then I've just always known since then.
When I look, Dolly, at the website for the National USports Women's Hockey Championship, it says right on the front page, see them, be them. And women's hockey, we've been talking about quite a bit lately, kind of having a bit of a moment. And I'm sure you can see yourself even in the National Hockey League now, thanks to the Seattle Kraken, for example. How does it feel to be a part of the women's game when it's having this moment right now?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You can see all the opportunities getting bigger and bigger, and women around my age are just developing themselves as coaches, so that's kind of where all the opportunities are coming from. But it is pretty incredible to see that I can make a long living doing coaching, which is what I love, so it doesn't really feel like working. But it's awesome to see Jessica Campbell and all the Canadian national coaches as well.
What do you love about coaching? Kicking over Gatorade containers, yelling at players?
I honestly love it all. Like, even the conflict resolution, I just like getting down to the players' levels and working through it with them and trying to get them to play their best hockey. I think once the girls find their groove and are playing really well, that's really what I love. So just helping them get there.
One of the things I've heard from so many coaches over the years, Dolly, who were formerly players, as you are, is that it's as close as you can get to having an impact on the game without being out there. But do you ever find yourself kind of stuck in between, like, oh, if I was out there, I would have done this or I could have done that?
No, I'm definitely a better coach than I am player. But I also think you have more control on the game as a coach, because you can only control when I'm a player that 15 to 20 minutes that you're out there. And then when you're on the bench, you can have control or help the girls play their best all game.
So looking ahead about a month from now, March the 20th, when the USports National Women's Hockey Championships open in Elmira at the Dan Snyder Memorial Arena, how does it feel to be the host school this year?
I think it's amazing. It's definitely an experience I've never had. We went when I played at Laurier, and then I went as a coach last year. So this is the first time being involved in hosting and seeing all the work that goes behind the scenes with our department, especially our marketing department. They're working really hard at making this the best event. But it's really cool just to see the behind the scenes. You can take a little bit more pride. You know, the people there are going to be cheering for you, which is nice. So. I
wondered about that. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of a home team, hometown boost coming up in March, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of, so I'm from Owen Sound. I think a lot of the Owen Sound teams are going to come and support us. So that's pretty cool.
Is there a sense, Dolly, of a little bit of unfinished business for the team this year after capturing that McCaw Cup and making it to the championship?
Yeah, there definitely is some unfinished business. I think we're focused on right now winning that McCaw Cup, winning that first round of playoffs, and then going from there. But there is definitely unfinished business. We're going to move on. And our goal is a national championship, so that is the goal.
So how do you, as a coach, keep the players focused on, for example, this weekend you're up in Ottawa, and you want to keep them focused on those league games, but also thinking about the ultimate prize? How do you, as a coach, keep the players focused?
I think we're pretty lucky with our group. Our group barely talks about nationals. They're obviously excited about it, but their goal right now is to have a good weekend in Ottawa and try to finish first overall. And then, yeah, they're just dialed. For us to get prepared for nationals, that's just a behind-the-scene thing, something just with me, Riggs, Cheesy, just really prepping for nationals. And that can happen without talking to the players about it, getting them distracted.
You talk about that goal of finishing first. It looks like Guelph is kind of standing in the way. Do you need something like, well, we're in Ottawa on the weekend. Could we send somebody over to Guelph to do a little something to mess? Anything that we can do to help, Dolly? We're here, you know. We're a team here in the region.
Yeah, the Guelph has a bit of a tough weekend, so we're just hoping to win our 6 points and then see what happens. We're happy to finish second, too. We're not worried about who we play in playoffs. We're just here to play our game.
It's great to see the success that continues on the ice during this regular season, and we can't wait for that pursuit of another McCaw Cup and then the national championships coming to Woolwich Township. Dolly, keep up the great work with the program, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Mike.
Dolly Meggs is an associate coach with the University of Waterloo women's hockey team. We, as a community, but Waterloo as the host school, playing host to those USports Women's Hockey Championships, March the 20th through the 23rd, Dan Snyder Memorial Arena in Elmira. And you can learn more just by Googling USports Women's National Hockey Championships. If you can't see them, you can't be them. Volunteers are always welcomed. And the most important thing is, let's fill that barn when the tournament gets underway on Thursday, March the 20th. Let's make sure it's full, and we are supporting our University of Waterloo women's hockey team as they go in pursuit of that so far elusive national championship. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I look out my window at the steel gray skies of February. I listen to the news reports. It's like snowpocalypse is coming. Snowmageddon is almost upon us. We're in for a wallop. And you know, in the face of all of that, a little bit of positive self-talk. Never hurt nobody, never. Okay? And so I introduce you to the Love-firmation Station at Conestoga Mall in Waterloo. Don't take my word for it. Take Tracy's. Tracy Elop is the CEO at Camino, Wellbeing and Mental Health and joins the program this morning. Tracy, tell us what this Love-firmation Station and Love-formations are all about.
Well, this is a program that Conestoga Mall has every year. This is the second year that Camino has been involved with it. And really what it is about is providing yourself with an opportunity to get an affirmation that you choose. So there's so much negativity. There's so much uncertainty. People are really struggling with their mental health and well-being. And this is an opportunity to really reflect on the great person that you are and take something home that reminds you of that.
So what might an affirmation like this look like?
It might. So there's cards. So you go to Conestoga Mall right outside of Winners, and there are envelopes, and you can choose from an envelope. Something might read, I am strong enough, or I am loved, or I can do this. And you choose something that speaks to you, and you get to take it home with you. And the great thing about it is that for every card that someone takes home with them, Camino gets a donation from Conestoga Mall of $1 per card. And that goes to support people who are really struggling with their mental health.
There's really an opportunity here too, Tracy, to kind of spread the good, if you will, and share this, our own affirmation card on social media.
Of course there is. And we're encouraging people. They have a beautiful selfie station there that you can sit on a swing and take a picture. And we're asking people to tag at Camino Wellbeing so that we can really reflect on all of the affirmations that people have.
What do we know, Tracy, about the importance of affirmations like this? If we take that envelope that says, I am strong enough, I can do this, I am able, whatever that affirmation may be, what do we know about the impact that has on our own mental health and well-being?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. It is a really simple but powerful tool, and it creates a healthier mindset and a stronger sense of self. And that helps people with handling stress and improving well-being. It gives us resilience against negative self-talk. And so it sort of just, in some ways that, when we wake up and it's a gray, dark day, that can be a little deflating. And when it's a sunny day, we feel better. And so it's the same thing, I think, with affirmations. When we reflect on negative self-talk, it brings us down. And when we focus on all of the things about each of us that we do well, that are our strengths, that propel us forward, it really does make a difference in our outlook and how we're able to cope in our everyday world.
Yeah, and, it's one of these things that we talk about, and it sounds, and it probably is, a little easier said than done. We tend to dwell on the negative. It's kind of a trait that we have evolved with to protect ourselves against harms. But these positive self-talks and these affirmations really can make an impact in our day if we are mindful about practicing them.
It is so true. And I think, just practicing and talking to friends and family about that. I think about the number of, for example, children who are struggling with social media and all of the things that are happening. Thinking about a parent or caregiver taking their child to the mall and encouraging them to choose something that speaks to them, and then opening up that conversation about well-being. I think it's an invitation.
You mentioned earlier, Tracy, what we are seeing in terms of people and their mental health struggles. How is Camino Wellbeing and mental health meeting this need in our community?
Well, we're doing the very best we can. We know that the demand for our services is really, really high. And, if I think about sort of before and after the pandemic, there's been almost a 3 times increase in the number of people who are in Canada rating their mental health as being poor or fair since the pandemic. So that's significant. One of the things that we have done is we have offered everyday quick response for all ages, and that means that you can come into either the Charles Street location of Camino or the Queen Street location, and you can get support by a clinician that very same day. And we have a sliding scale, so if you don't have the ability to pay, there will be no charge for you. And if you can pay, or if you have the access to benefits, then we use that money to support the work that we do.
So you mentioned earlier, Tracy, that this Love-firmation wall is at Conestoga Mall, right outside Winners. We can pick the card that speaks to us, put it in that envelope. For every card taken, Conestoga Mall is making a donation of $1 to Camino Mental Health and Wellbeing. Is it there all hours of the mall? Will we find some folks from Camino present as well? What should we know about that?
Yes, you certainly will find us there this week from 6 o'clock until 9 o'clock. A representative from Camino will be there to talk to you about your Love-firmation and just share a little bit about the work that we do until Friday. But I'm excited to say that the Love-firmation Station will continue to be at the mall until the end of February. And so you can go any time between now and February 28th and pick up an affirmation card, and the funding, the donation from Conestoga Mall will come to us.
They call it the cruelest month, and what a nice way to help us get through the rest of it, Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you very much for making time for the show today, and thanks for the work that you all do.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Tracy Elop is the CEO at Camino Wellbeing and Mental Health. Pay a visit to Conestoga Mall and get involved in some positive self-talk. Get one of those affirmation cards, put it into an envelope, remind yourself that, heck yeah, you can do this. And for every card that is selected, Conestoga Mall makes a $1 donation to the work being done at Camino Wellbeing and Mental Health. You'll find it at the Love-firmation Station right outside Winners. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It's almost as though you snap your fingers and here you are, approaching the noon hour. Of course, you'll get your update in the 570 News Center, and then open phone lines. So you are not just kept inside the lines, if you will, of the topic that we happen to be discussing. Although every topic that we've discussed seems to have the cloud of tariffs hanging over it. So maybe that's what you want to talk about in the next hour. Or maybe there's something else that is happening in your part of the region that you would like to make us more aware of. If it's important to you, it's important to us. And that's why we clear space every day for our final hour to hear directly from you during the Talkback Hour. And I would love it, as I am on the verge of another few days away. We're heading out on the road, perfect timing, just in the wake of a snowstorm, with the Kitchener Rangers to head up to Kingston, Ottawa, and Peterborough over the Family Day weekend. So entertain me, would you, for my final 60 minutes with you this week. Open phone lines for the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour beginning right after this update from the 570 News Center. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
It is the hour of the day where we encourage you to do the opposite. Please do talk back. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715 as Ontario Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford remains in Washington, pleading really Canada's case against the Donald Trump-imposed tariffs. I'll remind you that he wasn't there alone yesterday.
As you can see, I brought a couple of my colleagues, two great mayors from London and Kitchener, just great allies, and it's an all government approach, no matter if it's federal or provincial or municipal. It's all about Team Ontario, Team Canada, and really communicating to our American friends, informing how important our relationship is, and building the AMCAN fortress I've been talking about for quite some time to make both countries the wealthiest, the richest, safest, most prosperous two countries in the world. They understand it.
Doug Ford, alongside, flanked by Vic Fideli. I'm pretty sure I saw Stephen Lecce. And then I saw Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic and the Mayor of London, part of that contingent in Washington on Tuesday. Mayor Verbanovic got there within hours. He caught a flight to Washington after finishing a council meeting in Kitchener. Now the mayor of Kitchener is off in New York. He's got a very busy North American trotting. I won't call it a globe trotting week, but Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic in Washington with Doug Ford yesterday. And then I'll take you to our regional council and a committee meeting yesterday where Regional Chair Karen Redmond made the plea to go local.
The time to act is now. The potential tariffs present not only a challenge, but also an opportunity to strengthen local supply chains, deepen intra-Canadian trade partnerships, and advocate for our regional interests at the provincial and federal levels. Waterloo Region has always been at the forefront of innovation and adaptability. From the advanced manufacturing to tech-driven industries, we have consistently found ways to evolve and to thrive. With the right strategy, collaboration, and investment in our businesses, we can navigate this uncertainty and continue to build a resilient, prosperous region.
I'll just remind you of that report from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce looking at the 10 hardest hit Canadian cities when it comes to these Trump-imposed tariffs, and the region of Waterloo in at number 4. Billions of dollars in the comments from Chair Redmond at that committee meeting yesterday at stake here with what we export primarily from our manufacturing sector, which makes up about 20% of our local gross domestic product. It begs the question, it really does, why we didn't turn inward sooner. Why only in the face of this threat do we decide that now is the time to do something? A wee bit frustrating, to be sure. And on a much lighter note, but I think this could really be exactly what we need right now, right? Canada and the Four Nations Cup. Give me a team with Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, and more. And surely to goodness, Canada can succeed at the Four Nations Cup that starts tonight, right? That's what we need right now. That's exactly what the doctor ordered. Let's go to the phones, hear from you on our Talkback Hour. Dave, start us off. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I hate to start off the day being downer, but I have to give a thumbs down on the firing of Sid and Meredith yesterday morning. I mean, that was unbelievable, and that's my downer for the
You
day.
mean on breakfast television, don't you?
Right.
It took me a second there. My old buddy Sid Sixero, I could tell you stories about Sid when it was Tim and Sid in the afternoons on I guess middays they used to do on the Fan, noon till 3. I was there when they were working there. Great guys.
I know him. I remember him being on The Score.
Yep, that goes way back. You're right, with Greg Sansoni. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Well, I appreciate that. It is a volatile business, and I can't promise, I can be honest and tell you, I don't know what led to that. I was as surprised as the next person when I saw Sid's post that he was no longer with us. I mean, professionally, that is. He's alive and well, and he is a tremendously talented broadcaster. I'll never forget, I did the morning show at the Fan in Toronto. Well, not by myself. I was one of 3 people, and I was the third of the 3. But nonetheless, we would get off the air at 9 o'clock. We did 5:30 to 9. And then by about 9:30, Tim and Sid were already, around 10 o'clock, 10:30, they were already rolling in, starting to get ready for their show. They put on a great show. And Sid never took his foot off the gas when it came to how much preparation he put in for a broadcast. Grant, good afternoon. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Yeah, good afternoon. New callers last night? Not really. They called in other times. So
we had a lot of brand new voices on that post-game show, Rangers Talk, last night. And then after 10:15, we opened it up to the regulars.
All I caught was two callers that do call in.
Oh, you must have missed the beginning, Grant, because we had like 4 or 5 brand new voices, which is great because we try to share the air.
Okay, you're off the hook.
All right, thanks, buddy. Thanks.
And last night's game, I don't know. It carried on from Saturday's game where Kitchener, with a minute 20 left, with an extra attacker, they were just dragging their butts.
What do you mean? They scored the goal to tie the game. A minute 14 to play last night. I know what you mean. You're thinking there was some carryover from the big win on Saturday, clinching the playoffs, and maybe the team didn't come out with the same enthusiasm last night that you would have liked. But you got to give them some credit. I'm not the coach. The coach can, give him a tongue lashing if he wants to, and I guess you as a fan can. But they tied the game with a minute 14 to play last night. They got an extra point, even though they really only played the third period. So I think most of us will take it. 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You've got the numbers and you know how to use them. A busy Talkback Hour. There's still a line for you, though, if you want to be a part of it. Back to the phones. Chris, good afternoon.
Boy, how Trump forgets about we sent our own people down there to fight the fires in California. Hundreds of planes landed in Gander, Newfoundland a few years back at no charge to them. One of the Canadian people took them in at their own cost and fed them for 4 days. The Canadian soldiers, usually in the front line for cannon fodder for the Americans to come in behind them, on and on. And why aren't our politicians bringing that up and reminding them about, hey, guess what? We did something just better than being good neighbors. We went above and beyond.
Chris, it's an excellent point. All are excellent points. And I wonder if it would even matter, sadly. I get the sense that Donald Trump doesn't care much what we have done or are doing, even most recently with those fires and the support we sent down for firefighting efforts. I don't know. But you're not wrong about any of it. I read a really interesting interview the other day with the director of Come From Away, and that story of the Newfoundlanders who opened their homes to Americans when, the world was spinning out of control, it seemed. So, yes, we have been better than good neighbors. We have been excellent neighbors. And yet, here we are, being really threatened with economic warfare is what it comes down to. Kyle, good afternoon.
Mr. Farwell, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So these tariffs that were coming in, it's very interesting because 90% of my customers, I deal with metal all the time for delivering their stuff. And I was kind of worried about it as well. Like, I was talking to a few of them, and I was like, what's going to go on with these tariffs? How much of an effect is it going to have on your company? And they say it's obviously going to hurt them, especially with contracts that they've already kind of put out, and now they got to kind of go back and say, okay, now these tariffs are in place, so I got to redo the whole contract. But what really struck me, and I think it was yesterday I saw, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong there, Mike, but he wants to stack the 25% tariffs of steel and aluminum. Is that correct that Trump wants to do? Is something about he's going to stack them on top of each other with other goods? Is that correct?
Yes, I heard the same.
So, I don't understand what his motive to do this is, because it's going to affect the United States market probably a lot more than he thinks. And if there's no way that they could start building manufacturing plants within 4 or 5 months to offset the cost of what's going to cost them. So I just don't understand it. But my customers are optimistic. I think like the guy from Hunter Steel was. and we just have to learn to adapt. But I think us Canadians will be fine. We've gone through this before, and it won't be the first or last time, and I'm sure we'll go through it again at some point. But we just got to stay positive and optimistic there. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right, Kyle. I appreciate the call. I guarantee you that the impact on the American economy will be greater than Donald Trump thinks, because I don't think Donald Trump is thinking about the American economy in all of this. Unquestionably, it will hurt Americans economically. And we heard just the other day when Justin Trudeau was at that AI conference in Paris, he had an aside with J.D. Vance, the vice president in the United States, and talked to Vice President Vance about the impact on his home state of Ohio with the steel and aluminum tariffs. It's undeniably going to have an impact on the United States economy, but it appears clear to me anyway that Donald Trump cares not about that, or is not thinking about that whatsoever at this point. Bob, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Bob. How are you?
Well, I hope you have a good trip when you go, Mike.
Thanks. I hope so, too. I'm a little bit worried about the weather, to be honest, but what can you do?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, do you think that Pierre is still going to push for an early election when the Parliament returns?
Yes.
I don't know. The numbers are starting to shrink.
Well, I know. It's really interesting, especially when you look at that Leger poll that says if Mark Carney were the Liberal leader, the Conservatives' lead in the polls disappears entirely. They're at a dead heat at about 37% popularity or support.
And some people think, I don't blame the Singh for saying that he'd be willing to rework the deal when Parliament returns, because he's looking after the seniors who are trying to anyway. And the Liberal Party is going to be the only party that's going to listen.
Yeah, I think, Bob, we need to have an election here. This, one government or one party propping up another party, I think we've had enough of that for now. We can go back to the polls and decide if we want a couple of parties to form a coalition or if we want one party to be a majority. I think it's time for that.
Well, like I said, you're entitled to your opinion.
All right. Well, and you're entitled to yours, too. And you say that you don't blame Jagmeet Singh with the NDP for wanting to continue some sort of, or, look again at some sort of coalition. Fair enough. I think as Canadians, we're ready. Let's just have a vote. And if it turns out to be another minority, then we'll let the parties figure out who's supporting whom in order to make Parliament work. But I think it's time to head to the polls. It's time right now to take a break and then come back with more of your calls. Paul and Scott. I know a guy named Paul Scott, one of my mentors in this business, but it's two different people, and we'll get to their calls and yours as we continue the Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We'll get right back to the phones on this busy Talkback Hour Wednesday afternoon. Paul, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Listen, this morning I heard on the news that the school board is looking for suggestions on the naming of a new school that's going to open up. Got a solution for that. Now, they say that it can't be named after a family or an individual or a business or anything. Like, who wants to go to Amazon Public School or anything like that? A simple solution, province-wide, we rename all the schools, all the grade 1 to grade 8 school as PS for public school, and then a number. And the same with the high schools, HS and a number, to eliminate any possibility of offending anyone. Now, of course, if they're going to do this, they're also going to have to look at what the actual numbers mean. And nobody wants to go to PS 13. And I don't think anyone in the Catholic School Board would want to go to HS 666. So we'll have to take that into consideration. But just eliminate all school names that have any reference to anything else and just name them according to a number. Hey, if you want, maybe use the latitude and longitude of the first two numbers of each to name the school.
That's not a bad idea. And then they could learn something. I've got a better idea, though. We have in the past named schools after former directors of education. We've got the J.W. Girth School. Let's name the new school the Jiwan Chanaka School. How about that? Scott, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. So,
everybody needs to understand, I think, why Mr. Trump is doing what he's doing. He has a $4 trillion tax cut that is sunsetting this year that he needs to make good on. And he is doing everything in his power. Why do you think Mr. Musk is going through all of those wonderful exercises that he's going through? Because what's going to happen is he is going to gut Social Security and gut Medicare to help pay for those, as well as all these tariffs, which he is putting on the backs of all of the people that are living in the U.S. right now. So this man is doing everything in his power to make sure that his rich friends stay richer and his poor people stay poorer. That is exactly why he's doing what he's doing. We are just in the way, easy target, because we've made our life, as Canadians, we were lazy about this, and we made it easy for him to buy. If I hear one more time that he subsidizes Canada, I'm going to throw my phone through the window. I've had about as much as I can take with this guy. We subsidize his oil, his hydro, so that they can make billions of dollars on these products. Let's not forget that.
All right, Scott. Very well said. Please don't throw your phone through any windows. But I understand the frustration. And yeah, when you're surrounded by billionaires, it does raise a question or two, doesn't it? 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio, Rogers TV. If you want to be a part of the Talkback Hour, it's really easy. 519-570-2545. Star 570 by cell or long distance toll free. 1-800-570-5715. You call one of those numbers, we answer, you talk back. That's how the Talkback Hour works. And we continue with Terry. Good afternoon, Terry.
Hey, hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. It's kind of funny that we import mostly from China and overseas, and we export to the States. It's kind of like a revolving circle type thing. But going back to what Liberal Bob was saying, Pierre Poilievre has been chomping at the bit now for 3 years. There's no going back now. I mean, regardless whether he wins or loses, he's gone too far. There's no turning back now.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and there's going to be an election before October. So, I mean, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. And once Justin Trudeau packed it in, and they're on the verge of selecting a new leader now, yeah, that could cause trouble for Mr. Poilievre. But yeah, he's gone a bridge too far now. There's no going back. So, whether he falls on that sword, we'll see. But yeah, I don't know what he's going to do. You think he'll resign if he loses, or? I mean, chances are, if the Liberals do it, it's going to be a minority anyway. But even if that happens, do you think he's done, or he's going to stick around?
Oh, I can't. The Conservatives have to stop doing that. Scheer to O'Toole to Poilievre, they can't just keep eating their young if they're not successful in the election.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, if the Liberals do win a minority, I think he'll stick around because he'll try hope that maybe they'll slip up somewhere and he'll be given the opportunity before the 4-year mandate. But if the Liberals, by some weird reason, win a majority, he's done. I just can't see him sticking around. I don't know if he even would want to stick around. But it's something to think about. Anyway, Mike. Enjoy your trip. I hope that the weather cooperates for you. And just before I go, one quick: does Moose go around the big city like the 407, or does he shoot through the 401?
Oh no, he takes 407.
407, yes, yeah. What I thought. So hopefully the weather won't be too bad tomorrow morning.
Hope so too.
You guys leave. Okay, Mike. Have a good one.
Thanks, Terry. You too. We're in good hands with Moose at the wheel of the Rangers bus, but I wish it could be better forecast-wise for our trip east this weekend. Mark, good afternoon. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Good afternoon, Mike. I heard you talking earlier about you and Rosie were out for a walk and you seen Kitchener city workers.
No, they weren't. I think they were contracted, though, by the city, right? Out clearing the sidewalk. So I'm pretty sure those were people that did not clear their own walks. They got a notice given, the warning, and then they came out 24 hours later, cleaned it up for them, and left them a bill.
Exactly. And you said you didn't know what the price tag is. You know what it is, Mike?
Tell me.
$250.
Is that it?
What do you mean? That's a lot?
I'd make it like 1,000, but okay, 250.
250. And we got a big one coming in apparently today.
Yes.
So boy, oh boy, I hope they have a good bank account.
Yeah, I hope you're right, Mark. Or if not, maybe what they could just do is shovel their snow. I say like 250 seems reasonable considering 3 guys, could have been 4. And then all the salt that gets used. Oh my goodness gracious. But they got it down. They got it right down to the wood, let me tell you. Tom, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi.
We're going about the wrong way with this taxes that Trump wants to put. Like, our government shouldn't spend money on military, shouldn't spend money on the border. This is what he's telling you. So you can spend more money and be more...
Why shouldn't we spend money on the military or on the border?
Because we don't need to.
Why? Because the states... the states...
Can you just wait? Let me finish. Just let me finish.
But you say we don't need to.
His intention is to take over. And I blame our government, our ministers, and all these idiots because they didn't look for other markets.
Tom, I'm sorry.
This is where our problem is.
If you think Donald Trump's intention is to take over, why the hell wouldn't you want to have a military?
You want to fight with the U.S.?
Well, I don't know. You want to just roll over?
Well, that's what you're going to do. It's either that or go with India or Russia or China.
So we'll just let Trump have it.
Well, you got no choice.
Okay. Well, there you go. Don't spend on the border. Don't spend on the military. And Donald Trump, walk on in. Annex us, baby. Annex us. Robert, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Paul from Preston there was talking about numbering the schools for naming them, and then I
think it's a great idea.
I think.
What's that? You have a better idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know how the problem with currently naming them after, a person that we once liked, and then we find out later they did something bad, so everybody hates them. Just name them after somebody we already hate. So I think the Paul Bernardo Public School sounds great.
Oh, come on. Come on.
I'm kidding.
Of course you are. I get where you're coming from, though. Yeah, and listen, another dollop of sarcasm added to it. I didn't hate Paul's idea before, to be honest with you. I know he was being somewhat facetious, but really, to me, it makes the most sense. Just number the damn things. Same thing with streets. You ever been to Edmonton? Avs run one way, streets one another, and everything is numbered. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, et cetera, et cetera. No harm, no foul. Heaven forbid we find a way to be offended by numbers. Tom, Talkback Hour, turn for you.
How you doing, Mike?
Good.
My first question, Mike, is with that debate or forum today, would that be canceled due to the weather? Will that go on?
As far as I know, it's going on. It's not airing. We're recording it tonight, and I better find out for you again. The 14th, I believe, is the first airing. 14th and 17th.
Is it public? Can the public attend, or is just no?
No, it's in the studio at Rogers TV.
Okay, all right. So let's look at what's happening over Ukraine right now. That basically they've been being it's extortion, really. Maybe for lack of a better term, if you don't give me the minerals that we'd like and you have, we're not going to supply you with any ammunition and support for America. But by the way, though, we're not going to have you in NATO. And if Trump wants what he wants, and he has no qualms, no ill ways about doing business, and if that's how he does business, and these people who think joining America would be great again, we're in for a real shock here because this gentleman is, I'm using the term loosely, he does not play by the rules. He makes his rules up as he goes. And it doesn't matter. I don't understand why Ford and everybody's there. He doesn't care. He can't be trusted. He will say one thing and come back 2 days later or within 24 hours say, no, I've changed my mind. So he has not earned any trust, and he hasn't earned any benefit of the doubt. So that's where I'm at today. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Tom. Always good to hear from you on the Talkback Hour. You want to be like Tom, or like the other Tom, or like Robert or Paul or Scott? Just give us a call. It's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour where you start the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You can tell it's getting later in the day when even the computer gets a little tired. Devin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass. Don't ever be shy about just kicking it. It's not your computer. It's the company's computer. Well, tell them I said it's okay. Just kick a Rogers computer. I wonder, is that going to go on my job review now? That Farwell said to kick a computer? I don't know. Have you ever tried kicking the computer before?
I've gone for the smack.
You gone for the smack?
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody needs a good smack upside the head once in a while.
Well, every piece of technology needs too.
Good smack upside the CPU.
Exactly.
All right. Now it's going on your job review too, you know.
I can't win them all.
We go down together, buddy.
Exactly.
All right. Devin's answering your calls. We're listening to you on the Talkback Hour this afternoon. Doug, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. I wish these people that are bashing Trump and being misinformed by the propaganda of the Ontario or the Canadian media. The lead story on a West Virginia radio station this morning was of a woman who got a hold of Trump when he was campaigning and told him about her son who was rotting in a Russian jail for bringing in medicinal marijuana. Yesterday, he was able to call from Moscow to his mother, and Trump was on the tarmac greeting him as he kissed the tarmac as he got off the plane, and he took him to the White House for an interview at a show around and a welcome home. You make sure the guy who thinks that is just helping his billionaires. Musk is working for free, exposing hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of mint
hang on a sec.
money.
Hang on a sec, Doug. Hang on just a sec here. Are you trying to tell me that, I mean, it's a lovely story if accurate. No, hang on.
The billionaire
hang on.
Accusation.
Hang on.
Okay.
Are you trying to tell me, as lovely as the story is of a mother and child reunion, that one family's reunion story is a bigger story than the economic impact that these tariffs are going to have on all of North America? That's a bigger story, Doug?
I wasn't comparing that.
Well, but you're suggesting that the Canadian media is telling the wrong story. What we try to do, what I learned in news, is to tell the story first that matters the most to the greatest number of people. And I can sure as hell tell you that one guy in West Virginia matters a whole heck of a lot less than the economic impact on this country.
That was the lead story on their AM news this morning.
What the hell has that got to do with anything is my point, Doug.
Because the guy has accused Trump of surrounding himself with billionaires.
He has surrounded himself with billionaires.
Helped to one individual.
Fine.
Musk is working for free.
It doesn't matter.
Hundreds of billions of dollars.
Okay.
He's recovering money from other sources of the corruption of his own government, as well as reaching and trying to recover with tariffs.
You don't think that the policies being put in place by Donald Trump during his time in the White House will benefit the already wealthy in the United States?
If you've already got the full story, Trump said all countries that are bringing in steel and aluminum. That includes Brazil, that includes South Korea, and it was another country that I forgot. He said all countries.
But I want to know from you if you think that the policies that Donald Trump enacts will benefit people in the United States who are already wealthy.
Well, I remember when the first tariffs were put in on his last, the mill rats in Pennsylvania were cheering because they can now go back to work.
All right. I don't think you're answering the question, but wherever it is you're getting your information, I hope it makes you happy. Simple as that. Jack, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Oh, good. You're a Leaf fan, right?
I beg your pardon?
You're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, right?
I certainly am.
And they're doing very, very good this year, aren't they?
They're doing just fine for me, thank you. But I want them to do better in the playoffs this year, if that's not too much to ask.
No. Hey, I hope they do too. But really, what if they go 4-0 in the playoffs? How's that going to feel to all the Leafs?
I will be disappointed once again, but I'm used to it.
But once again, I know. I mean, I just have to throw that out to you.
All right, Jack, I appreciate it. I'm here for the Toronto Maple Leafs talk, and believe me, as excited as I am for the Four Nations Cup and Crosby, McKinnon, McDavid on Team Canada, I'm a little bit worried about Austin Matthews, my favorite player in the world, because he plays for Team USA. John, you're on the Talkback Hour.
Hey, Mike?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Just my 2 cents. Trump is a master negotiator. He's a businessman. And sometimes, you look at these things that he's doing and you wonder to yourself, is he deflecting and trying? Really, he wants something else. Like either whether it's the oil pipeline or he wants, to open up the free trade again and renegotiate terms, or there's something else there. And I think he's just using this as a deflection till it comes out what he really wants from Canadians.
John, I think you make an excellent point, and I'll let you go there because there's a lot of background noise on your Bluetooth, but nailed it. I'm almost certain, because you're right, Donald Trump is a master negotiator, and what's in front of us right now is probably just there to distract us from what he really wants. Is it the resources here in Canada? Could well be. I guess we'll find out, but I don't think John's too far off base with that idea. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just a few minutes away from 1 o'clock and your update in the 570 News Center. And after that, Now You Know with Rob Snow from 1 until 3. At 3, Aaron Anderson, Paul McPhee will join you for all news afternoons, keep you up to date on the storm. It's a-coming, baby. It's a-coming. Let's get back to the phones on our Talkback Hour. Jim, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. Always listen, but just somebody, the guy that called in and said that we should just roll over and let Trump come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that got to me.
It got to me a little bit, too.
Maybe he's on the wrong side of the 49th parallel, maybe.
That's possible.
Yeah, because I don't think Canadians are going to lay down, and I doubt it'll ever come to that, but we have lots of backup, and the Americans seem to forget that we're part of a commonwealth, and they're all on our side.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Jim. And as much as we've talked lately about Canada's place in the world and maybe how we don't have quite the same respect we once did, I think we still have enough that should push come to shove, we'll find a lot of friends on our side of this.
Yeah, and we're not, as the saying goes that I've been seeing around, it's we're sorry until we're not sorry.
Also true. Also true.
Yeah. And then you're in trouble.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, I just had to call in, or it was going to bug me all day.
All right, Jim. Well, thanks for calling in. I don't want it to bug you all day. That's one of the beauties of the Talkback Hour. Get some stuff off your chest. It can be rather therapeutic that way. And yeah, as Jim said, maybe our previous caller who thought that Canada should just roll over because it's going to happen anyway is on the wrong side of the 49th parallel. Maybe he's on the wrong side of common sense. I don't know. What I do know is this. My time here for today is about up, and I'm not going to be here tomorrow or Friday or next Tuesday, as I am on a road trip with the Kitchener Rangers. We will depart tomorrow, games on Friday in Kingston, on Sunday in Ottawa, and next Monday on Family Day, we'll stop and play the Peterborough Petes on our way home. And then since you get the long weekend, then I'm going to be working. I'm taking Tuesday off just so I can have a day off. It'll be a bit of a long weekend for me, I suppose, too, or at least a day off after the road trip. Friday morning, I'll be here with the Coaches Show and the Other Coaches Show between 10:30 and 11, getting you ready for the game. And please do tune in to Paul Fixter and I all weekend long as we get closer and closer to the playoffs with our Kitchener Rangers. Devin Robertson is our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.